Imagine a war in which your enemy evolves incomparably faster than your weapons. Over the past decade, global beekeeping, from almond orchards in California to canola fields in Canada, has been flooded with so-called natural solutions. Essential oils, plant extracts, and herbal teas promise a world without Varroa, without the use of heavy chemicals. It sounds like a perfect biological dream, doesn't it? But as a professional beekeeper, you must ask yourself key questions. Are we truly treating the colony with these preparations, or are we merely soothing our own conscience while the parasite continues its silent destruction? Is thymol a real shield, or is it a metabolic toxin for your bees? Can eucalyptus oil truly penetrate capped broods, where as much as 80% of the parasites are hidden? Are you certain that plant-based preparations do not shorten the lifespan of your worker bees? Today, we remove the layers of marketing and examine raw biochemistry. This is not a guide for amateurs on how to make your apiary smell pleasant. This is a cold, analytical deconstruction of biological efficiency versus temporary illusions. Welcome to the Eterna Analytics documentary series. Let's look at the facts. To understand the real role of plant-based preparations and essential oils, we must first understand the biology of our enemy. Varroa Destructor is not an ordinary parasite. It is a biologically masterfully adapted organism for stealing the vital resources of the bee. A female Varroa does not enter a brood cell by chance. She perfectly detects the chemical signals of larval food and enters exactly 15 hours before the workers seal the cell. That is when her rapid reproduction begins, where one Varroa during a single brood cycle can produce up to 4 new reproductively capable females. This exponential growth curve means that Varroa literally laughs at your calendar if you think that one treatment per year is enough. Beekeepers across the United States and the world face a biological paradox. Traditional acaricides have lost the battle because Varroa has developed high resistance, while public pressure is pushing the industry toward chemical-free beekeeping. In that transition, essential oils and plant-based preparations take the lead. Their use dates back to the 1980s, but today the key question is whether they act precisely enough and strongly enough to prevent the collapse of an entire colony. When you introduce an essential oil into the hive, you are not actually treating the bees directly, you are changing the entire microclimate of the colony. Essential oils act on the biology of Varroa through the process of evaporation. Their mechanism of action is based on disrupting octopamine receptors in the parasite's nervous system. The first level of action is respiratory toxicity. Varroa breathes through specific peritoneal plates. When the concentration of volatile plant compounds in the hive air exceeds a certain threshold, the parasite enters severe respiratory stress and suffocates. However, this is where the biological problem arises. The bee also breathes that same air. The line between a dose that effectively kills Varroa and a dose that permanently damages bees is incredibly thin. If the beekeeper exceeds the concentration, they face bee mortality, or the dropping of young bees with severe neurological damage. On the other hand, if the dose is too low, Varroa simply changes its behavior and retreats deeper into protected areas of the brood. The second level of action of these molecules is the disruption of chemical communication within the colony. Essential oils contain molecules that mimic or mask bee pheromones. This can confuse Varroa, but at the same time creates chaos in the communication of the bees themselves. It has been recorded that queens reduce egg laying, bees become extremely agitated, and in more severe cases, robbing behavior is triggered in the apiary. The third, often overlooked level of action is the impact on the microbiome. Plant-based preparations are not selective. They alter the bacterial and fungal flora in the digestive tract of bees, subtly destroying symbiotic bacteria that are crucial for the bee's immunity. To make professional decisions, we must dissect each individual preparation, its purpose, and its documented effectiveness. Scientific data clearly separates decoctions, herbal teas, pure essential oils, and organic acids. Thymol, thyme extract. Thymol is by far the most well-known and most studied natural preparation. It acts exclusively as a fumigant, evaporating within the hive and disrupting the respiration of Varroa. Commercial thymol-based products can achieve efficiency of 65 to 95%, but only under strict field conditions. In a 2024 study, it was proven that a thymol nanoemulsion at a concentration of 25 parts per million achieves a Varroa knockdown efficiency of 70.45%, showing better results than standard thymol with significantly lower consumption and fewer residues in the hive. However, the use of thymol carries enormous risks. Thymol is a highly lipophilic molecule. It permanently binds to fatty tissues and wax in the hive. Long-term use leads to comb contamination, and studies show that wax saturated with thymol has a sublethal effect on the development of bee larvae. The larvae do not die immediately, but develop into workers with shorter lifespans and weakened immunity. Its application requires strict temperature control. Optimal is between 15 and 30 degrees Celsius. Below 15 degrees, evaporation stops and the preparation does not work. While above 30 degrees, it evaporates too quickly, melts, and directly kills brood. Application is performed by dosing 50 grams of commercial gel on cardboard between frames, with mandatory repetition after 2 weeks. For homemade formulations, beekeepers dissolve 8 to 12 grams of thymol crystals in oil and apply it to a cloth over the top bars, repeating the process 3 times at intervals of 7 to 10 days. Cinnamon oil. Cinnamomum verum. Cinnamon oil has shown surprisingly stable results. In field tests conducted in 2024, its efficiency was 73.5%. The purpose of this preparation is autumn cleaning of phoretic Varroa. The application methodology requires the oil to be dissolved in glycerin, applied to cardboard strips measuring 2 by 10 centimeters, and placed between frames. 3 strips are used per hive, replaced weekly over 4 weeks during the autumn period. Analyses confirmed that cinnamon oil has no toxic effects on bees, does not cause larval mortality, and does not interfere with the queen's activity. Eucalyptus oil and menthol. Eucalyptus oil is commonly used in North America and Australia due to its strong smell and potential repellent effect on mites. Menthol is known for its cooling effect, but in the hive it acts exclusively as a fumigant. However, scientific studies are clear. These preparations deliver significantly weaker results, most often with efficiency below 60%. Their application cannot provide independent control of parasite populations, but serves only for temporary relief of the colony. Tea tree oil, Melaleuca viridiflora, and clove oil, Syzygium aromaticum. In rigorous tests from 2024, tea tree oil achieved an efficiency of 71.3%, while clove oil recorded 76.4%. These preparations show a clear ability to eliminate parasites compared to untreated colonies, but are still biologically weaker than synthetic reference values. Laboratory extremes: bitter melon, garlic, oregano, and rosemary. In controlled laboratory tests, 30 different plant species were tested. Bitter melon oil showed an impressive 80% mite mortality at a concentration of 15%. Oils of garlic, oregano, basil, and mustard showed efficiency between 66 and 70%, while peppermint and rosemary eliminated 53 to 55% of parasites. Cage tests showed that 24 out of 30 oils killed over 90% of Varroa within just 72 hours. But a biological shock occurred. Only 9 of these preparations were completely safe for bees, keeping worker mortality below 10%. This is key evidence that the laboratory success of volatile substances rarely translates safely into real field conditions, where microclimate and brood dictate the outcome. Plant decoctions, extracts of nettle, linden, lavender, sage, and dandelion. Unlike pure essential oils, decoctions are herbal teas prepared in water. Their purpose is long-term, milder reduction of infestation and boosting colony immunity. Field studies conducted in 2025 proved that aerosol application of these decoctions reduces average Varroa infestation from 1.8% to 1.1% over a 3-year cycle. Statistical analysis using linear mixed models confirmed high effectiveness of specific mixtures. These decoctions act through contact and repellency, physically interfering with mites on adult bees. Preparation requires boiling 100 grams of dry plant material in 1 liter of water for exactly 10 minutes. After cooling and filtration, the liquid is sprayed directly into the hive at a dose of 5 milliliters per frame, with mandatory repetition every 14 days during the autumn period. In addition to reducing mite numbers, an improvement in overall colony immunity was observed through increased pollen consumption. Organic acids, oxalic and formic. Beekeeping science clearly separates organic acids from volatile oils. Oxalic acid, applied by dripping or sublimation, acts exclusively by contact. Upon contact with the Varroa cuticle, the acid aggressively destroys its lipid layer and causes fatal dehydration. Its efficiency reaches over 98%, but only in a completely broodless period, most often during December and January. Its biological limitation is the inability to penetrate capped broods. Formic acid, unlike oxalic, releases a gaseous phase that physically penetrates wax caps into brood cells and eliminates Varroa during its reproductive phase. However, formic acid is an extremely aggressive biological substance. At high external temperatures, evaporation becomes so intense that queens stop laying eggs, workers abandon the hive, and mortality of older bees often occurs. Its dosage must be surgically precise. Here we come to the most critical concept that most beekeepers on the North American continent overlook: the efficiency gap. Essential oils and plant-based preparations act almost exclusively on phoretic mites physically located on the backs of adult bees. However, up to 80% of the total Varroa population is safely protected under wax caps inside the brood. If your plant preparation kills 90% of mites on bees, but absolutely zero in the brood, you have not saved the colony. You have only delayed its collapse by 15 days. That is why a single surviving Varroa in brood means 20 new individuals in just 2 reproductive cycles. If you had 500 Varroa in August and eliminated 425 with a plant preparation, you are left with 75 individuals. Those 75 parasites will form a population of over 300 new mites by October, and your colony then enters a phase of irreversible decline. Then there is the thermodynamic trap of evaporation. The effectiveness of oils depends exclusively on vapor pressure. If in spring or autumn the external temperature is 15 degrees Celsius, active substances simply do not evaporate, and the preparation has no biological effect. On the other hand, summer temperatures above 35 degrees cause violent evaporation. This creates an unbearable microclimate inside the nest, forcing bees to leave the hive and stop brood rearing. This is what we call a temporary illusion of control. The next critical factor is the metabolic cost of detoxification. Every molecule of essential oil you introduce into the hive is recognized by the bee as a foreign substance. To survive this chemical stress, workers must expend their own energy on detoxifying the nest. Bees lose Vitellogenin reserves, the most important protein for winter survival. Brood developing in the presence of these oils has a documented higher mortality rate. Through multiple seasonal treatments, you exhaust the workforce. Instead of keeping Varroa under control, you simultaneously reduce the number of parasites, but also the vitality and lifespan of your workforce. In nature, a weakened colony always loses the biological race. That is the biological cost of your intervention. To be absolutely precise, this is not a call to abandon natural methods. This is an appeal for surgically precise, strategic integration. Plant-based preparations do not have the capacity to act as the only line of defense, but exclusively as part of a broader integrated pest management system, IPM. The biggest mistake is relying on plant protection without any diagnostics. Without prior measurement of Varroa levels, every treatment you apply is pure guessing. A professional approach begins with precise monitoring. The use of the alcohol wash method on a sample of 300 bees provides accurate insight into parasite pressure. If you detect more than 3 Varroa per 100 bees, the colony is in a critical zone and requires urgent intervention with a strong preparation that reduces the population below the survival threshold. Only after that can plant extracts be introduced as a measure for mild maintenance and slowing the growth of remaining parasites. The strategic model applied in highly productive apiaries requires rotation. Formic acid is used in August to break through the protective layer of brood. The autumn period is ideal for milder application of thymol, when brood naturally decreases. Finally, oxalic acid is applied by sublimation during deep December dormancy to surgically eliminate the last surviving phoretic individuals. Never forget selective biological pressure. If you constantly treat a colony with weak doses of essential oils that reduce only 60% of Varroa, you are actually breeding so-called super Varroa. Weak weapons do not eliminate the problem, while strong weapons solve it, but must be rotated to prevent biological adaptation. Finally, consider economic reality. Treatments with essential oils require 4 to 5 repetitions. The cost of the preparation itself, multiplied by the metabolic energy loss of your bees, generates a direct financial deficit. In comparison, one precise, timely professional treatment saves colony resources and guarantees safe overwintering. Plant preparations are ultimately there only to bridge the period until genetics, that is, VSH bees, Varroa-sensitive hygiene, become the global standard, taking over the fight against the parasite through natural brood cleaning. The conclusion is firmly documented by facts. Plant-based preparations, decoctions, and essential oils are absolutely not a scam. They possess a clearly measurable biological effect. However, that effect is limited, subject to climatic oscillations, and deeply insufficient as a standalone, permanent solution. If used improperly, without monitoring Varroa load, they give the beekeeper a false, temporary illusion of security, while the parasite continues to grow in the background, silently destroying the organism from within. In the hands of an educated beekeeper, they become a useful tool for controlling pressure. In the wrong hands, they are a ticket to the collapse of your colony by spring. Logic and precise biology always defeat illusions in the end. If you want your colony to survive, develop, and generate profit, you must play by the laws of nature, not by the instructions on a product label. If this in-depth analysis helped you clearly understand the marketing behind natural solutions, subscribe to our channel. Click the bell so you don't miss future episodes. And finally, prepare for the next episode. In the next report, we directly attack a phenomenon that defies the common sense of every beginner. Most beekeepers around the world firmly believe that more bees automatically mean more honey in the hive. They are wrong. We will thoroughly deconstruct the data behind the shocking truth: why 60,000 bees produce less honey than 45,000. The illusion of strength. We will show you why a massive, overcrowded colony at certain biological moments represents your greatest economic burden. Do not miss this report. Until then, measure precisely. Do not guess. See you in the next episode. Honey flow.